The President of the United States just warned all EV makers that they're all losing money and most are backing out. Ford, GM, and even overseas companies like Toyota are changing course because we're not buying enough EVs. Let's be honest, most of us want combustion engines more than anything. And that's not just an assumption. The sales sheet can prove that, and even the sales numbers are just half the picture. Because the Biden administration is literally dumping billions of dollars into the industry just to make EVs more appealing to us. But that hasn't worked. We'll tell you why and answer all your questions about the big and true picture that no one is talking about. We all know that the US government is very serious about making electric vehicles the main mode of travel. They've even laid out a roadmap to swap out gas-powered cars for EVs within the coming decade, backed by new regulations and a hefty financial commitment. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, is drafting a game-changing rule aiming for 60% of new cars sold in the US to be EVs by 2030, ramping up to 67% by 2032. Brace yourselves, folks, this is a monumental shift in the car market. But why all the buzz around EVs? Well, let's start with the climate change issue. EVs are the superheroes of clean and green, and the Biden crew is on a mission to cut down on carbon emissions. Now, let's dive into the dollars and cents. Ramp up EV production and the US could kick its reliance on foreign oil, giving a nod to countries like China in the EV showdown. But here's where it gets a bit tricky. What about the average American cruising in their gas guzzler? Well, tough luck for us. Shifting to EVs might mean waving goodbye to the freedom of choosing your ride. And EVs don't come with a bargain tag. And that upfront cost? Brace yourself. It's like a cash tornado ready to hit your wallet. And the worst thing is that EVs are not as practical as they seem to be. Picture this, you're on an epic road trip and suddenly your EV's battery decides to take a snooze in the middle of nowhere. Charging spots are scarcer than gas stations, and waiting for your car to juice up is as thrilling as watching paint dry. Sure, it'll make America less dependent on oil-rich countries like Saudi Arabia. But here's a plot twist. A chunk of the stuff needed for those EV batteries comes from overseas, mainly China. And most of the components needed to make the batteries come from African countries that have very close ties to China. If this is not a big red flag, then just wait till we tell you how these materials are extracted. So in a bizarre turn of events, while we're revving up for energy independence, we might find ourselves more hooked on other countries for battery materials. And those battery components don't just magically appear out of thin air. No, they come straight from mines, some with horrible working conditions. The supply chain is filled with low-wage workers and, in some cases, even kids. Clearly, Biden's got the wrong end of the stick when it comes to EVs. He's thinking they're a breeze, all cheap and user-friendly, but reality check? They've got a ton of issues that turn consumers off. They're pricey, need special spots to juice up, and don't go the distance. Trump, on the other hand, has a very different thought about this industry. He doesn't believe in the EV future. One reason could be to fight against his rivals, but there is more to that story, which we'll talk about. Because whatever politics has to say about this, we can't hide from the facts. And Biden is blowing up the EV market growth like it's a blockbuster, saying sales tripled and charging ports shot up by over 40%. But hold up, that's not the whole shebang. The truth is, EV sales are still in the pits, and the charging setup is slacking. Despite this, the government is still injecting a substantial $92 billion into the industry through initiatives like the Inflation Reduction Act and other legislative measures. That's not just cash, it's a catalyst for job creation, propelling the US to the forefront of EV and battery production. But the EV business isn't raking in enough cash. Companies making EVs are losing money on every car, some even selling them for less than they cost. On top of that, they're wrestling with other countries, pumping out cheaper, better EVs. The EV industry is grappling with a myriad of challenges. So it's not surprising when automakers with grand plans for electric pickup trucks are hitting the brakes. General Motors scaled back its electric pickup truck production expansion, while Ford slammed the brakes on a hefty $7 billion of its planned $15 billion EV investment. The only one that seems to be doing well is the Cybertruck, and that also has so many flaws, which we'll talk about in detail in just a few minutes. The first one is that it costs more than $50,000. Sure, it's a cool and capable truck, but who can afford to buy a truck just because it's cool? This is one of the major problems with the industry. It's full of useless and extra capable cars that don't mean much to the mass of the population, the middle class. And if the middle class can't buy them, then how will we be able to shift to EVs even if we wanted to? These are glaring signs that the EV revolution is hitting some serious roadblocks. Adding to the conundrum, the electric cars already manufactured are languishing in dealerships, overshadowed by their gas-powered counterparts flying off the shelves. Dealers are pulling out all the stops, dangling enticing incentives like cash rebates, federal tax credits, lease deals, and lower interest rates to entice buyers. But even with these sweeteners, electric cars are proving a tough sell, and the companies are losing more than $200 million a week. The primary hurdle is what we just talked about. EVs are still punching above the budget for many. Take the Ford F-150 Lightning, for instance. It's rocking a price tag about $13,000 higher than its gas-powered sibling. Starting at around $50,000, the electric truck's price is a steep leap from the gas-powered version, which starts around $37,000. That's a substantial chunk of change for most families. This is not a new thing. We all know about this problem. That's why there's Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, intended to be a savior for the EV industry. While it did spur more investment in batteries and factories, it seems we're still far from the finish line. Because the law aimed at revving up electric vehicle (EV) sales is still falling short of expectations. The target was 1 million EVs this year, but the actual numbers are lagging far behind. Automakers are grappling with massive losses due to EVs, and don't take our word for it. Ford revealed a staggering loss of $60,000 for every EV they roll out. Imagine running a business like that. It's not sustainable, and what will happen when the government can't keep dumping these huge amounts of cash? But look at China. They're cruising ahead of everyone in the EV sector. They lead the pack in both EV production and battery technology. With abundant critical minerals crucial for batteries, China has a firm grip on the game. The US is trailing behind, struggling to tap into its own resources, hindered in part by opposition to mining. This gives China a strategic edge in the global EV market. They're flexing their muscles, expanding battery and EV ventures worldwide, especially in Europe. With billions in investments, they're determined to solidify and grow their dominance in the EV market. The government has been the lifeline of this industry for a long time now. But a system like this will fail, which is inevitable. So what is their plan? Pushing for a majority of new cars sold in the next decade to be electric. And the catch? Car manufacturers are grappling to meet these standards, and if they stumble, hefty fines could hike up car prices. It's a blow to both creators and consumers. This will have a huge effect outside of the industry too. With job losses already hitting hard, it will have the whole US economy in shambles. Even Ford is axing around 700 positions at their Detroit plant, known for crafting the electric F-150 Lightning truck. GM and Toyota are also trimming jobs to trim costs. EVs are steering the car industry into challenging terrain, and not even the mighty Tesla is immune. Elon Musk, the CEO, dropped a bombshell, revealing that the Cybertruck, Tesla's new electric pickup, might not be a cash cow due to production complexities and mistakes in the process. Industry experts are sounding the alarm, pointing out that the supply of EVs has outpaced demand, hinting that car manufacturers might need to scale back their ambitious EV plans. It was a brutal wake-up call for all companies involved, especially the top player, the F-150 Lightning, which saw a staggering 46% drop in sales compared to last year. And the main issue when it comes to electric trucks is range anxiety. Buyers fear that electric trucks won't have sufficient battery life or charging infrastructure for extensive journeys. Add to that the significant price difference. Despite receiving a substantial $9.2 billion boost from Biden's government to amp up EV production, Ford is feeling the jolt of EV setbacks the hardest. They're bleeding money. The last quarter saw a $1.3 billion loss on EVs, with a staggering $36,000 lost on each unit sold. And they're projected to hemorrhage $4.5 billion in the upcoming quarter. Tough road ahead for the Blue Oval. Adding fuel to the fire, there's a political rift over EVs, with Trump and Biden at opposite ends of the spectrum. Trump throws shade at EVs, viewing them as a menace to the traditional auto industry and the economy. He predicts job losses and an economic nosedive, cautioning that EVs are both too pricey and unreliable. But Trump's anti-EV stance isn't just personal, it's a strategic move to win favor, particularly in Michigan, a pivotal state for the auto industry. At a recent rally there, he took aim at the industry's shift to EVs, painting it as a potential disaster for both the sector and the nation. Biden's dream of an electric future is hitting snags. Car manufacturers are putting the brakes on EV production because they have to. It just doesn't make sense. But the real victims are us, the population. But what do you think? Will EVs make the industry better or worse? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you on the next video.